Hey, Washington football fans, welcome back. You saw the title, you saw the thumbnail, you know the meme. Everybody wants Washington to get a quarterback. Ron Rivera's like, man, we got Spencer Rattler at home. So I know the meme implies that, there's lesser with what you have. But watching these two guys play, I've been diving in to this quarterback class coming up because that's the what could be the last piece we need to be like a juggernaut. And of course this all hinges on Taylor being healthy, but if we get like constant play out of him like we got against the Buccaneers, it can be crazy. But if we don't, like I said, I've dove into this class a little bit, and I think it's deeper than last year. Honestly, there might not be as many first round guys, maybe, but overall NFL quality quarterbacks, depending on who declares, first of all, but top to bottom, the talent in this quarterback class coming out, it looks pretty impressive. And I think we're kind of entering an era where quarterback prices could start to dramatically drop as far as free agents go, just because there's so many good guys in the league already. I know the perceived importance of the position that's leading to these insane prices, but these good quarterbacks are playing longer now. You got Brady, Rodgers is looking to stay and play longer. Matt Ryan's hanging in there. There's quality quarterbacks that are staying and playing, well into their 40s. And then it seems like, you got seven or eight guys every year that are coming in that can, be decent. And it's like, it's only going to take so many years before everybody's got their guy and quarterback just isn't as scarce. So I think the moves we've made are smart ones. Looking forward, it's going to help us stand out kind of as that first team that knew the situation and was like, hey, we're not overpaying somebody to, get this position. We built the whole team good, and we just need a good enough guy. We don't need a top 5. We don't need a top 10 guy. Our players in general are far more talented, but the quarterbacks coming out these days in the draft are just more pro ready. And that's kind of happening with players across the board. We saw running back get devalued in the draft in the past few years. It's like you don't want to take a running back in the first round because a lot of these guys can fill in. There's more important things about a running back being successful than just the skill of the guy. So they've been devalued, and I think wide receiver and even offensive line are already on the way. If you look at the slides in the draft this year, look, Christian Darrisaw, Tevin Jenkins, how far down they ended up going. Sam Cosmi that we got, these guys were all talent-wise, first-round players that slid quite, a bit later. And it was because how many of them there were. You looked at, the third best tackle in there, and you're like, man, he's really good, but we could take another guy here, and with how many of these guys are out there, the talent gap isn't too huge. We can get somebody of, decent quality later on just because the sheer depth of the quality in the class. Now, quarterback is still highly valued now in the draft, but like I said, it's getting close to a lot of teams, having their guy and players playing later. We could see quarterback have that kind of decline in the draft. And honestly, I see positions like safety, which is pretty devalued now, and cornerback, which it's still got good value. I see their value getting boosted in the draft because of how much nickels played all across the league Like, these guys are going to be more important, and there are less of them of quality. Just like linebacker. Like, linebacker's considered like a low value position because a lot more nickel play, more safeties are needed. But just the sheer scarcity of quality linebackers that have come out in the drafts in the past few years could bump their stock up. Okay, all that said, let's get back to what I was talking about. This incoming class, sorry for that tangent, but this incoming class, the talent didn't just surprise me. Something I found weird was the size of the players in general. Like, most of the consensus top guys are like Taylor size. Like, they're on the small end of the quarterback spectrum. And it kind of seems like the position's trending that way. It's a bunch of Baker Mayfield type guys. And I think Heinicke fits that mold too. Sure, you got your Allens and your Wentzes, your Herberts and your Lawrences, but the younger quarterbacks are all kind of falling into like this Watson and Wilson, like between Watson and Wilson, you know, between 6'2 and 5'11. Like, they're all kind of falling in there, 6'3 at most. I mean, not at most, because like I said, you have your Herberts and your Lawrences, but the bulk of them are all kind of falling in there. And it's about how the position's played. Like, these days, like that college-y style of offense is played. Like, it just lends itself to those, you know, scrambly little, you know, not too big, can kind of slip through holes and sling the ball. Maybe that little compactness to them helps them, even though they're all around like 210 pounds. Maybe it just helps them be coiled and strike. I don't know, but they're all kind of like trending towards that size. And the few exceptions to that are some of the guys I'm the most interested in this draft. But let's get back to what I was talking about. The guy that most people see the consensus, like, possible number one overall pick next year, Spencer Rattler. He's supposed to be the next in line of great Oklahoma quarterbacks. So I dove into his tape, and honestly, it looked pretty familiar. The things he's doing at the college level reminded me of how Taylor played against the Buccaneers. Like, they look so similar. The way they moved in the pocket, the way they kept plays alive, they picked up yards with their feet when they needed to, they kept their eyes down the field while they were scrambling, and like, they both have like a nice ability to hit like underneath touch passes. Like, this all sounds like very common stuff, and it is that kind of modern college-y style, but just like something about it, like, they just looked so similar in the way they executed. And this guy is supposed to be a first overall pick, whereas Taylor is this undrafted nobody from Old Dominion. You know, he's undrafted, he's been out of football, you know, hasn't really done much, but he kind of fit, like, he can play the same kind of ball as these guys. Now, like, I think he's smoother with his timing and anticipation than Rattler because he's got more experience. You know, he's been around longer. And Rattler's billed as having a big arm, though I haven't seen him drive the ball down the field as much as you'd expect. Yeah, he's got some 61-yard passes through the air, but you don't see him doing it a lot. And like I said, this is kind of like the way they're playing. That's kind of the current trend in like the QB play style. And I think Heinicke, like, in the little bit we've seen, is really excelled with that type of playing. Like, he plays like one of these highly touted college-y quarterbacks. So let's just take a look at their stats. I used the sophomore stats for Heinicke because, I mean, that's Rattler's first year as a starter last year. So just looking at their stats, like completion percentages, Rattler had 67.5, Heinicke had 68.7. Passing yards, Rattler had 3,031. Taylor had 5,076. He was balling in Old Dominion. Yeah, we also got to look like he's in Oklahoma and Taylor was at Old Dominion, but, you know, difference in competition, but still, Taylor didn't have, some of the receivers that Rattler had, and he didn't have the line, like, it was comparable. Like, watching the things a quarterback do are very much translatable no matter what the competition is, really, just like what Zach Wilson was this year. Anyway, but then touchdown to interceptions, Rattler's 28-7. Taylor was 44-14. Like, that's pretty impressive. 44 passing touchdowns and only 14 interceptions. Nice. QBR, Rattler takes the advantage at 72.6 to Taylor's 162.6. And then they had rushing yards and touchdowns. Rattler had 160 and 6 touchdowns. Taylor was balling out with 470 rushing yards and 11 touchdowns. So that's kind of how they stacked up, and like I really think like it's very similar. It's just weird that like this guy is the number one possible number one overall, what people are saying consensusly, and like we got that guy at home. Like I know the meme means something bad, but honestly, it looks like it stacks up pretty well. And either way, if Heinicke doesn't work out, like we have to look towards quarterback in the draft. And we definitely still need a mobile type quarterback. But if Taylor does stay healthy and he still fails, then we got to look away from that kind of modern college-y type quarterback. I mean, we could look at, the massive arm talent guys that are mobile enough, or the insane mobility guys with good enough arm. Like, I think these, like the Rattlers and the Baker Mayfields and the Taylors are kind of just like jack of all trades, master of nones, when we should be looking at, like, freaky traits with production. Like, I hate not having production, even though, like, I'll talk about one of my favorite guys here. Really hasn't shown much production yet, but man, he just wows you. But I'll be doing an in-depth dive in later on the quarterback class in general, especially after the college season gets going and I actually get to look at these guys for another year. But first of all, like, I'm not in the same place I was last year. I was kind of thinking, especially leading into this draft, I was kind of thinking, like, man, pocket passing is just obsolete. Like, you got to be able to move. But there's a lot of guys coming out in this draft that are really, really good pocket passers that can maneuver in the pocket, and they look good. And I guess maybe Mac Jones kind of helped me, like, understand, like, yeah, it can still work maybe. Like, he hasn't stepped in there yet, but just the more I think about what he did, and then Tom Brady's still out there doing it, Matt Ryan's still out there doing it. If you go to a team that's built for it, it can definitely still succeed. But again, I don't think that's what we need. And for the players, as close as I would get if Taylor fails, the closest I would get to that, like, Baker Mayfield college-y type quarterback would be Sam Howell from North Carolina. He was De'Ami Brown's quarterback, and he's kind of like that Baker Mayfield type quarterback, but with, a cannon. He's an amazing deep ball thrower. Sure, he had De'Ami Brown, but he had the arm to take advantage of De'Ami Brown. And he scrambled, keep plays alive, pick up some yards. He's that college-y type, but with a cannon. So that's as close as I would look to it. And Grant Wells from Marshall, I mean, full disclosure, I am an Appalachian American, a.k.a. I'm from West Virginia. Grant Wells from Marshall, He's the great value version of Sam Howell to me. He's a sleeper like Taylor Heinicke, you know. He moves good, and he's got a big arm. You know, he's just I like the guy, and you know, later on, like, this is definitely a guy that we could, if we miss out on some of the bigger quarterbacks, it's a guy that'll definitely go later. I can't wait to see him play this season, and he could have like a Zach Wilson breakout with, he's pretty good off platform, and he's got a huge arm. So like we could definitely see him have a breakout. But some of the other guys I think here, Tyler Shuck from Oregon. Now, I know this past season I was pretty down on Trey Lance from his lack of passing attempts. He only had like 318. I was like, man, I won't trade away the future to get that guy, blah, blah, blah. But he was a better runner than he was a thrower. Sure, he had a huge arm, but he was such a dynamic runner. That's what made him special. Tyler Shuck is just like the inverse of that. Like, this guy, I mean, first of all, he's 6'5", 221 pounds. He had a 64.6 completion rating, and he only had 1,703 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. You know, in his first year starting. Big arm, mobile. You know, he's got that small sample size, but he looks so impressive to me. Like, one of the best deep balls I've seen in a long time. Trey Lance got the Josh Allen comps. This guy has got Josh Allen written all over him. And honestly, even though he's, you know, small sample size and 16-6, still seemed like a better decision maker so far in college than Allen did. So he's kind of like that inverse of Lance, bigger arm, less dynamic runner, but still a great runner. He transferred to Texas Tech. I am going to be watching every Texas Tech game this season. Wasn't a fan before, but I want to see this guy, see how he develops. If he has a great season, he could skyrocket up the rankings. And yeah, definitely going to be looking out for him. He's somebody that definitely intrigues me. And then Malik Harris. Everybody's talking about him. Malik Harris has special mobility from the quarterback position. Like honestly, Lamar Jackson type special mobility from the quarterback position. He's got that agility, he's got that shake, he's got crazy balance. Like, he can, like, there's a play where he gets hit and spins all the way around and then throws like a 40-yard dime down the field. It's just stuff you can't teach, and he's got a big arm to go along with it. So, I know he's at Liberty, at the transfer to Liberty, but a couple people have already said it. They, you know, compared to Trey Lance, sure, he's a bit smaller than Trey Lance, but the difference between him and Trey Lance, people have brought it up. Trey Lance did not get recruited to any Division I schools. Malik Harris was recruited to Auburn, and then, you know, when he wasn't getting the starting job, he transferred to Liberty so he could start. And man, he just looks like a beast. Another guy, I am certainly going to be watching all of Liberty's games if I can find them. But another guy, if he has an impressive season, he could shoot up boards. But a guy I would love us to get. And then this guy, nobody talks about this guy. This guy is like the inverse of Kellen Mond to me. This is a guy who's about to be a 4-year starter. But he's a far better, like, runner. He's a special mobility guy in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Like, he's been constantly getting better as a passer, though. Making better decisions. He's just gotten better as a passer every year, but he already had elite mobility from the quarterback position. So this is a guy, and I just love his attitude and interviews and videos he's put out talking. Like, I just love his attitude. He's got all these physical tools, and he's got a desire to get better. I mean, he's only 6'1", 200 pounds, and he only had a 60% completion rating, but he had 5,000 yards passing, and he had a 40 touchdown to 20 interception ratio, so definitely has to improve in decision making. But I'll be watching UCLA this year to see how he goes, because I'm really impressed by the kid. Really impressed by him. Then you got Desmond Ridder. I 100% am a Ridder guy over a Rattler guy. 100%. First of all, just the fact 6'4", 214, that just, it does it for me. I kind of like a big quarterback, especially when he's mobile. So he had a 61% completion rating. He threw for 6,905 yards, 57 and 20 touchdown and interceptions. He's got all these physical tools. He makes great off-platform plays. He's incredibly raw from like a technical standpoint, but like he flashes like nice little touch and like these little like take off run and pull up and then whoop, just drop in a pass. He just like I like a lot of what he has. I'm definitely going to be watching Cincinnati too. And he's a guy, the type of guy I think we should look at. A high mobility with a really good arm kind of guy. And then I got to look a lot more into him, but I have been impressed with Jaden Daniel. I think he's Arizona State. I'm not sure. Frank Darby and I think Brandon Ayuk and stuff. He's at Arizona. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Arizona State. But he's 6'3". He's only 185, so he needs to bulk up a bit. But he's a dynamic runner with a strong arm. He's a guy that like can throw dots on the run, keep plays alive. He's another, just like Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he's another 60.2 completion guy. He only had 3,644 yards, but he was 22 and 3 touchdown and interceptions, so he takes better care of the ball, and he's a slightly better athlete. So those are my guys that I've kind of keyed in on so far. I mean, there's a bunch of those college-y type guys to go along with Howland Wells and Rattler. Like I said, you got your Dylan Gabriels, you got your Adrian Martinez's, your Hank Bachmeyers, your Bo Nixes, your Chase Garbers. There's a ton of guys with potential in this draft class. Mackenzie Miltons, Lane Hatchers, Charlie Brewers, like Sean Clifford's. Like, there's a bunch of talented guys. Grayson McCall, who I don't think he should get the kind of hype he has got just for, beating the point spread. But Dustin Crum is a guy I like. He's like kind of like a Dante Culpepper type throwback, just like power running quarterback with a big arm. But yeah, that's just where I'm at so far with it. I really think Taylor, if he can stay healthy, he can be what any of these college-y type quarterbacks that a lot of people would be crying for in the draft can be. So if he doesn't work out, if he stays healthy and doesn't work out, we got to look past that style. Like, I just don't think, if he doesn't work out, it shows us that style doesn't work for us. And we should look at some of those other guys. But so there's my video. If you like the video, please comment down below. Please subscribe, even if it's just to come back and argue with me. Like, I got some Cowboys fans out there that are doing. So, yeah, like the video if you liked it. Comment, subscribe. I love you guys. Peace.